The morning sun was already high when Lisa stepped out of the small coffee shop on 5th Street, her mind racing with thoughts about the board meeting she had in 2 hours. As the CEO of Tech Vision Solutions, one of the fastest-growing software companies in the city, she was used to handling pressure. But today felt different. Today she was about to announce a merger that would make her company worth over $50 million. She reached into her expensive leather purse to grab her phone, but her heart sank when she felt around the empty space where her wallet should have been. Panic started to creep in as she remembered the chaos from earlier that morning. A clumsy customer had accidentally spilled coffee all over the counter, and in the rush to help clean up, someone must have knocked her wallet to the floor. By the time she realized it was missing, the coffee shop was packed with the morning rush and her wallet was nowhere to be found. Lisa stood there on the sidewalk, feeling more helpless than she had in years. Her phone was completely dead, her credit cards were gone, and she didn't have a single dollar in cash. The irony wasn't lost on her. Here she was, about to become one of the wealthiest women in the city, and she couldn't even afford bus fare to get to her own office. The downtown bus stop was busier than usual. People pushed past her, everyone in their own world rushing to get to work. Lisa checked her watch and felt her stomach drop. She had exactly 45 minutes to get across town to the office, and without her car, which was in the shop for repairs, the bus was her only option. She tried asking a few people if they could help her with bus fare, but everyone seemed too busy or suspicious. One man just shook his head and walked away. A woman with earbuds pretended not to hear her. Lisa started to feel invisible, which was strange for someone who was used to commanding attention in boardrooms full of powerful executives. That's when she noticed him. David was sitting on the bench at the bus stop, his work boots worn and dusty, his clothes showing the signs of a hard day's work even though it was still morning. He had been working double shifts at the construction site downtown, trying to save enough money to finally start his own contracting business. The dream had been with him for years, but every time he got close to having enough saved up, life would throw him a curveball. His mom's medical bills, his sister's college tuition, or his old truck breaking down again. He was tired, really tired, but there was something about the way he carried himself that showed he hadn't given up on his dreams. His hands were rough from years of manual labor, but his eyes were kind, and when he smiled, which he did often despite his struggles, people couldn't help but smile back. David noticed Lisa standing near the bus stop sign, looking around nervously. She was clearly upset about something, and he could see her checking her purse over and over again. He had a natural instinct to help people, something his grandmother had taught him when he was young. If you see someone in trouble and you can help, you help, she used to say. That's just what good people do. At first he hesitated. Lisa was obviously from a different world than his. Her clothes looked expensive, her bag was designer, and everything about her screamed success and money. But then he saw the genuine worry in her eyes, and his grandmother's voice echoed in his head. David stood up and walked over to her. "Excuse me, are you okay? You look like you might need some help." Lisa looked up at him, surprised. After being ignored by so many people, she hadn't expected anyone to actually care. "I'm so embarrassed," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "I lost my wallet and I don't have any money for the bus. I know this sounds crazy, but I really need to get to work and I don't know what to do." David could hear the desperation in her voice, and it reminded him of times when he had been in tough spots himself. "Hey, don't worry about it," he said, reaching into his pocket. "How much do you need for the bus?" "It's $3.50, Lisa said, feeling her cheeks turn red with embarrassment. "But I can't take your money. I don't even know." David pulled out his wallet and counted his money. He had exactly $12.75 until payday on Friday. After giving her the bus fare, he would have just enough left for a sandwich for lunch and maybe a coffee if he was lucky. But looking at this woman's face, he knew he couldn't just walk away. "Everyone needs help sometimes," he said, holding out $4. "My name is David and I'm happy to help. Don't worry about paying me back or anything, just help someone else when you get the chance." Lisa stared at the money in his outstretched hand. She could probably buy David's entire lunch with the money she had in her office emergency fund. She could buy him lunch for a month without even noticing the expense. But standing there at that bus stop, she realized that David's $4 meant more to him than $1,000 meant to her. And he was giving it to her without expecting anything in return. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice softer now. "This is really kind of you, but I feel terrible taking your money." "I'm sure," David said with a warm smile. "Besides, my bus doesn't come for another 20 minutes. Yours should be here any minute now." As if on cue, the number 47 bus rounded the corner, its brakes squealing as it approached the stop. Lisa took the money from David's hand, and for a moment, their fingers touched. She felt something she hadn't felt in years, a warmth that had nothing to do with the weather and everything to do with genuine human kindness. "Thank you," she said, meaning it more than she had meant anything in a long time. "I'm Lisa, and I promise I'll find a way to repay you." "Don't worry about it, Lisa," David said, stepping back as the bus doors opened. "Just have a good day." Lisa climbed onto the bus and paid her fare with David's money. As she found a seat by the window, she looked back at the bus stop. David had sat back down on the bench and was reading a worn paperback book. Even from the bus, she could see that his clothes were faded and his boots were scuffed. But there was something about him that seemed richer than anyone she knew. As the bus pulled away from the stop, Lisa found herself thinking about David instead of her upcoming meeting. In her world, people helped others when they wanted something in return. Business favors, networking opportunities, social connections. But David had helped her simply because she needed help. He didn't know who she was, didn't know what she could do for him, and didn't seem to care. The more she thought about it, the more she realized how long it had been since someone had shown her genuine kindness without an agenda. In her position, as CEO, people were always trying to impress her, to get something from her, or to use her connections for their own benefit. But David had just been a good person helping another person, and that simplicity was more refreshing than anything she had experienced in years. By the time Lisa reached her office building, she had made a decision. She was going to find David again, not just to repay him, but because she wanted to know more about the kind of person who would give his last few dollars to a stranger. She didn't know it yet, but that $4 was going to change both of their lives forever. 3 days had passed since the bus stop incident, but Lisa couldn't stop thinking about David. She had gone through her usual routine of back-to-back meetings, conference calls, and business dinners, but her mind kept drifting to the man who had given her his last few dollars without expecting anything in return. She had tried to focus on the merger paperwork sitting on her mahogany desk, but instead found herself staring out the window of her corner office, wondering if she would ever see him again. On Wednesday evening, Lisa made a decision that surprised even herself. Instead of having her driver pick her up like usual, she walked to the same bus stop where she had met David. She told herself it was just to repay him, but deep down, she knew it was more than that. There was something about his genuine kindness that had touched a part of her heart that had been closed off for years. The bus stop looked different in the evening light. The morning rush crowd was gone, replaced by people heading home from work, students with backpacks and elderly folks carrying grocery bags. Lisa stood there for almost an hour, checking her watch every few minutes and feeling foolish. What were the chances he would show up at the exact same time and place? Just as she was about to give up and call her driver, she saw a familiar figure walking down the street. It was David, still in his work clothes, looking tired, but walking with that same easy confidence she remembered. Her heart started beating faster, and she suddenly felt nervous in a way she hadn't felt since high school. David spotted her before she could decide whether to approach him or pretend she hadn't seen him. His face lit up with genuine surprise and pleasure. "Lisa," he called out, jogging the last few steps to reach her. "What are you doing here? Don't tell me you lost your wallet again?" Lisa laughed, feeling some of her nervousness fade away. "No. Thankfully, I managed to keep track of it today. I actually came here looking for you. I wanted to pay you back for the bus fare." She reached into her purse and pulled out a crisp $100 bill. "I know it was only $4, but I wanted to show you how much your kindness meant to me." David's eyes widened when he saw the money, and he immediately shook his head. "Whoa, I can't take that. It was just bus fare, not a down payment on a car." He laughed and gently pushed her hand away. Seriously, Lisa, you don't owe me anything. I'm just glad you made it to work okay that day. Lisa had expected this response, but she was still impressed by his refusal to take the money. In her world, everyone had a price, and most people would have grabbed that $100 without hesitation. Okay, I have another idea, she said, tucking the money back into her purse. How about I buy you coffee instead? There's a nice little place right around the corner, and I promise it won't cost $100. David hesitated for a moment. This woman was clearly from a different social class than him, and he wasn't sure what she wanted from him. But there was something warm and genuine about her smile that made him want to say yes. All right, he said finally. But I'm buying my own coffee. I may not have much money, but I can afford a cup of coffee. They walked to Murphy's Diner, a small, no-frills place that had been serving the neighborhood for 30 years. The vinyl booths were patched with duct tape, the floor was worn linoleum, and the coffee came in thick white mugs that had seen better days. For Lisa, who was used to expensive restaurants and corporate dining rooms, it was perfect. They slid into a booth near the window, and for the first time in months, Lisa felt herself truly relaxing. David ordered black coffee and a piece of apple pie, while Lisa got coffee with cream and sugar. So, David said, stirring his coffee, what kind of work do you do? You seemed pretty stressed about getting to your job the other day. Lisa had been dreading this question. She couldn't exactly say she was the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company without completely changing the dynamic between them. I work in business consulting, she said, which wasn't technically a lie. Helping companies improve their operations and things like that. What about you? Construction, David said simply. I work for Peterson Construction downtown. We're actually working on this huge office building project right now. Biggest job I've ever been part of. His eyes lit up as he talked about his work. I love building things, you know? Taking a pile of materials and turning it into something real. Something that will be there for decades. Lisa leaned forward, genuinely interested. That sounds amazing. Do you enjoy the work? Most days, yeah, David said, taking a bite of his pie. The pay could be better and the hours are long, but there's something satisfying about it. Plus, I'm saving up to start my own contracting business someday. It's been my dream since I was a kid watching my dad work on houses. As David talked about his dreams and his work, Lisa found herself more captivated than she had been in any boardroom meeting. There was a passion in his voice when he talked about building things, about creating something lasting with his own hands. It was so different from her world of quarterly reports, profit margins, and stock options. What about family? Lisa asked. Are you married? Kids? David shook his head. No, still single. I was engaged a couple years ago, but it didn't work out. She wanted someone with more stability, I guess. Someone with a 9-to-5 office job and a steady paycheck. There was a hint of sadness in his voice, but he shrugged it off. What about you? Single too, Lisa said. I've been so focused on my career that relationships kind of took a backseat. She didn't mention that most of the men she dated were more interested in her money and connections than in her as a person. They talked for over 2 hours, and Lisa was amazed at how easy it was to talk to David. He asked her about her interests, her hobbies, her thoughts on everything from movies to politics. He listened when she talked, really listened, and responded with thoughtful questions and observations. It had been so long since someone had been interested in her opinions rather than her business decisions. David found himself equally charmed by Lisa. Despite her expensive clothes and polished appearance, she was down to earth and funny. She laughed at his stories about work mishaps and seemed genuinely interested in his life. There was no pretension about her, no sense that she was judging him for his blue-collar job or modest lifestyle. When the diner started to close, they reluctantly gathered their things to leave. Outside on the sidewalk, they stood facing each other, neither wanting the evening to end. I had a really good time tonight, Lisa said, and she meant it more than she had meant anything in years. Me too, David replied. Would you maybe want to do this again sometime? I know a great little taco place that makes the best fish tacos in the city. Lisa's heart skipped a beat. I would love that. They exchanged phone numbers, and David insisted on waiting with her until her bus came. As the bus pulled up, Lisa turned to him. "Thank you," she said. "Not just for the coffee, but for this. For being so easy to talk to." "Thank you for finding me," David said with a smile. "I'm really glad you came looking for me today." As Lisa sat on the bus heading home, she realized she was smiling for the first time in weeks. She had gone to the bus stop to repay a debt, but instead, she had found something much more valuable. She had found someone who saw her as just Lisa, not as a CEO or a business opportunity, but as a person worth getting to know. And for the first time in her adult life, that felt like enough. Over the next 3 weeks, Lisa found herself living a double life in a way she had never imagined. Every few days, she would leave her luxury car parked at home and take the bus to meet David at various modest spots around the city. She had bought a whole new wardrobe of simple clothes from regular department stores, telling herself it was just to blend in better, but knowing deep down it was because she wanted to be the version of herself that David had fallen for. Their second date was at the taco place David had mentioned. Lisa had never eaten street food in her life, but watching David's face light up as he explained which salsas to try and how to properly fold the tortilla, she found herself genuinely excited about fish tacos from a food truck. The meal cost less than what she usually spent on a single appetizer at her regular restaurants. But she couldn't remember food ever tasting so good. "You've got to try this one," David said, holding up a taco loaded with grilled shrimp and mango salsa. "But be careful, it's got some kick to it." Lisa took a bite and immediately felt her eyes water from the spice, but she tried to play it cool. David noticed right away and started laughing. "Here, drink this," he said, handing her his soda. "I should have warned you better. I grew up eating spicy food, so I forget not everyone has a mouth made of steel." As Lisa gratefully took the drink, she realized how long it had been since someone had taken care of her in such a simple, genuine way. In her business world, people were always trying to impress her or gain her favor. But David just wanted to make sure she wasn't suffering from too much hot sauce. Their third date was a walk through Central Park on a Saturday afternoon. David had packed sandwiches and chips in a paper bag, apologizing that it wasn't fancy, but Lisa thought it was perfect. They found a spot under a large oak tree and spread out David's old work jacket as a blanket. "I love coming here," David said, looking around at the families playing frisbee and couples walking hand in hand. "It reminds me that there's more to life than work and bills and stress. Sometimes you just need to sit under a tree and watch the world go by." Lisa nodded, but inside, she was thinking about how different her usual Saturdays were. Board meetings, charity galas, business dinners. She couldn't remember the last time she had just sat in the park without checking her phone every 5 minutes. "What's your biggest dream?" David asked suddenly, turning to look at her. "I mean, if money wasn't an issue, what would you want to do with your life?" The question caught Lisa off guard. She had always been so focused on building her company and proving herself in the business world that she had never really thought about what she wanted beyond success. "I think," she said slowly, "I'd want to help people. Use business to make the world a little better somehow." "What about you?" "I want to build affordable housing," David said without hesitation. "There are so many families in this city who can't afford decent places to live, and I know I could build good solid homes for a lot less than what the big developers charge. I want to prove that you can make a living while still doing right by people." Lisa felt her heart skip a beat. Here was this man with calloused hands and worn work boots, dreaming of using his skills to help others, while she spent her days focused on profit margins and market share. As the weeks went on, Lisa found herself falling deeper in love with David, but the weight of her deception was becoming harder to bear. She had started leaving her office early and making excuses to skip evening business events, claiming she had the flu or family obligations. Her assistant had started giving her worried looks, and her business partner had asked twice if everything was okay. The breaking point came on their 6th date, when David took her to his neighborhood to show her the community center where he volunteered on weekends. They were teaching kids basic carpentry skills, and Lisa watched in amazement as David patiently helped a 10-year-old boy measure wood for a birdhouse. "Mr. David always helps us," the boy told Lisa proudly. "He's teaching me to build stuff so I can fix things at home for my mom." After the kids left, David and Lisa sat on the front steps of the community center as the sun set behind the buildings. David had wood shavings in his hair and paint on his shirt, but Lisa thought he had never looked more handsome. "I've been thinking about something," David said, taking her hand. "I know we haven't been seeing each other very long, but I feel like I've known you forever. You're different from anyone I've ever met, Lisa. You make me want to be a better person." Lisa's chest tightened with emotion and guilt. "David, you're already the best person I know." "I'm serious," he continued. "I've been saving money for my business for years, but meeting you has made me realize I want more than just professional success. I want to build something meaningful, maybe with someone special." He squeezed her hand gently. "I think I'm falling in love with you." Lisa felt tears prick her eyes. She had never felt so happy and so terrified at the same time. "I'm falling in love with you too," she whispered, and she meant it with every fiber of her being. But even as she said the words, the weight of her lies felt crushing. David loved her because he thought she was just like him, someone who understood what it was like to work hard for every dollar, someone who appreciated simple pleasures and genuine connections. How could she tell him that she lived in a penthouse apartment that cost more per month than he made in a year? How could she explain that she had been playing dress-up in cheap clothes while her real wardrobe was full of designer suits that cost more than his monthly salary? That night, Lisa lay awake in her king-sized bed staring at the ceiling of her luxury apartment. The contrast felt starker than ever. Her marble countertops, expensive art, and panoramic city view seemed cold and empty compared to the warmth she felt when she was with David. She picked up her phone a dozen times, wanting to call him and tell him everything, but each time she lost her nerve. What if he felt betrayed? What if he thought she had been making fun of him or slumming it with a poor guy for entertainment? What if he never wanted to see her again? The next morning at work, Lisa sat in her corner office overlooking the city, trying to focus on quarterly reports, but her mind kept drifting to David. Her assistant knocked and entered with a stack of documents that needed her signature. "Miss Lisa, are you feeling all right?" her assistant asked with concern. "You seem distracted lately, and you've been leaving early almost every day this week." Lisa looked up from the financial reports she had been staring at without really seeing. "I'm fine, just tired." But she wasn't fine. She was living in two completely different worlds, and she knew that eventually, those worlds were going to collide. The question was whether her relationship with David would survive the impact. She loved him more than she had ever loved anyone, but she was terrified that the truth about who she really was would destroy the beautiful, simple connection they had built together. As she signed document after document, approving budgets that were larger than most people's annual salaries, Lisa made a decision. She had to tell David the truth, and soon. She just hoped that the love they had found together would be strong enough to survive the revelation that everything he thought he knew about her was a lie. David had been planning this surprise for 2 weeks. He wanted to show Lisa the construction project he was most proud of, the one that made him believe he really could start his own company someday. It was a beautiful Saturday morning when he picked her up at their usual meeting spot, practically bouncing with excitement. "Where are we going?" Lisa asked, smiling at his enthusiasm. She loved seeing him this happy, though something in her stomach felt uneasy. Lately, every surprise made her nervous because she never knew when her two worlds might accidentally crash into each other. "You'll see," David said, taking her hand as they walked down the busy downtown street. "I've been working on this project for 8 months now, and it's finally almost finished. I want you to see what I do all day, what I'm really passionate about." As they turned the corner onto Fifth Avenue, Lisa's heart nearly stopped. There, towering in front of them with its gleaming glass facade and modern steel framework, was the new headquarters building for Tech Vision Solutions. Her building, the building that housed her company, her office, her entire professional life. "This is it," David said proudly, stopping on the sidewalk and looking up at the impressive structure. Tech Vision Solutions headquarters. 42 floors of offices, conference rooms, and some of the most advanced technology spaces in the city. We've been working on this beauty since last January. Lisa felt like she couldn't breathe. She stared up at the building where she spent most of her waking hours, where her name was on the door of the top floor corner office where everyone knew her as the CEO who had built the company from nothing. It's very impressive, she managed to say, her voice sounding strange even to her own ears. Come on, let me show you around, David said, his excitement infectious despite Lisa's growing panic. Saturday is the best time because there's no office workers around, just the construction crew finishing up the final details. They walked through the main entrance and Lisa had to fight the urge to run. The lobby was familiar yet strange, seeing it from this perspective. The marble floors she walked across every day, the security desk where guards greeted her by name, the elevator she took to her penthouse office. But today, she was just David's girlfriend, trying to act like she was seeing it all for the first time. The company that owns this place must be worth millions, David was saying as they walked through the lobby. I heard the CEO is some young woman who started the whole thing in her garage or something. Pretty amazing what people can accomplish when they set their minds to it. Lisa nodded mutely, feeling sick to her stomach. Here was David, talking about her life like it was some distant fairy tale, not knowing he was standing next to the very person he was describing. David! There you are! Lisa's blood turned to ice as she heard a familiar voice. Tom Rodriguez, the project architect, was walking toward them with a huge smile on his face. Tom had been in dozens of meetings with Lisa over the past year, planning every detail of the building. He knew her face as well as he knew his own blueprints. Hey Tom, David said warmly. I wanted to show my girlfriend the project. Lisa, this is Tom Rodriguez, the architect who designed this whole place. Tom, this is Lisa. Tom extended his hand toward Lisa with a professional smile, but the moment he looked at her face, his expression changed completely. His eyes widened, his mouth dropped open slightly, and Lisa could practically see the recognition dawning in his eyes. Ms. Martinez, Tom said slowly, using Lisa's full last name. What a surprise to see you here on a Saturday. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. David looked confused, glancing between Tom and Lisa with a puzzled expression. Martinez? David repeated. I thought you said your last name was Johnson. Lisa felt the world spinning around her. Every lie she had told, every careful deception, was crumbling in real time. Tom was still staring at her in shock, clearly trying to figure out what was happening. I'm sorry, Tom said, looking even more confused. Did I make a mistake? You are Lisa Martinez, CEO of Tech Vision Solutions, right? We've had so many meetings about this building. David's face went through a series of emotions so quickly that Lisa could barely keep track. Confusion gave way to shock. Shock gave way to realization, and realization gave way to something that looked like betrayal and hurt. CEO? David said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. You're the CEO of this company? Lisa opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. What could she possibly say that would make this better? How could she explain that everything he thought he knew about her was a lie? The CEO, David repeated, louder this time. The millionaire CEO who you've been letting me pay for coffee and tacos, and his voice trailed off as the full impact hit him. Tom, realizing he had walked into something very personal and very painful, quickly excused himself. I'm going to go check on the electrical work upstairs, he mumbled, practically running toward the elevators. David and Lisa stood alone in the marble lobby of her building, the silence stretching between them like a chasm. Construction workers walked past occasionally, but they might as well have been invisible. Say something, David finally said, his voice raw with emotion. Tell me this is some kind of mistake or misunderstanding. David, I can explain, Lisa started, but the words sounded hollow even to her. Explain what? David's voice was getting louder, and Lisa could see the anger building behind his hurt. Explain how you've been lying to me for over a month? Explain how you let me give you bus fare when you probably make more money in a day than I make in a year. Explain how you've been pretending to be someone you're not this whole time. It wasn't like that, Lisa said desperately. I never meant for it to go this far. At first I just wanted to repay you for the bus fare, but then we started talking, and you were so genuine, so real. I hadn't met anyone like you in years. So you decided to lie to me? David asked, his voice cracking. You decided to play dress up and pretend to be poor so you could see how the other half lives? No, Lisa said, tears starting to flow down her cheeks. That's not what happened at all. David, everything I felt for you was real. Every conversation, every moment we spent together, that was the real me. The real you? David laughed bitterly. I don't even know who the real you is. The woman I fell in love with takes the bus and eats street tacos and worries about money. The real you owns this entire building and probably has more money than I'll see in my lifetime. Lisa reached out to touch his arm, but David stepped back, like her touch might burn him. I trusted you, he said quietly, and those 4 words cut deeper than any shouting could have. I told you things I've never told anyone. I shared my dreams with you, my hopes, my fears, and the whole time you were lying to my face. David, please, Lisa begged. Let me explain everything. Yes, I have money. Yes, I'm the CEO of this company. But that doesn't change how I feel about you. It doesn't change what we have together. What we have together? David shook his head sadly. We don't have anything together, Lisa. Everything we built was based on lies. How can I ever trust you again? How can I believe anything you say when you've been deceiving me from day one? With that, David turned and walked toward the exit. Lisa followed him, calling his name, but he didn't turn around. He pushed through the glass doors and out onto the busy sidewalk, leaving Lisa standing alone in the lobby of her own building, surrounded by the wealth and success that suddenly felt completely meaningless without him. 2 weeks had passed since that horrible Saturday at the construction site, and Lisa felt like she was living in a fog. She sat in her corner office, staring out at the city skyline, but seeing nothing. The quarterly reports on her desk remained untouched. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago, and she had canceled 3 important meetings without explanation. Her assistant knocked gently on the door and peeked in. Ms. Martinez? The board is asking about the Thompson proposal. They need your decision by 5 o'clock. Lisa didn't even turn around. Tell them I'll review it Monday, she said quietly. But ma'am, you said that last Monday and the Monday before that. Mr. Williams from the board called twice today asking if you're feeling all right. Lisa finally turned to face her assistant, and the woman was shocked by what she saw. Lisa's usually perfect makeup was minimal. Her hair was simply pulled back in a ponytail, and she was wearing a plain black dress instead of her usual designer suits. I'm fine, Lisa said, though they both knew she wasn't. Just give me a few more days. After her assistant left, Lisa picked up her phone for the 100th time that day. David's number was still there in her contacts, but every time she started to type a message, she deleted it. What could she possibly say that would make any difference? Sorry I lied about being a millionaire. Sorry I made you fall in love with someone who doesn't really exist. Meanwhile, across town, David was having his own struggles. His co-workers had noticed that he wasn't his usual cheerful self. He went through the motions of his job, hammering nails and carrying materials, but his heart wasn't in it. During lunch breaks, instead of joking around with the other guys, he sat alone, picking at his sandwich and staring off into space. You've been acting weird for 2 weeks, his friend Jake said, sitting down next to him on a stack of lumber. What's going on, man? Girl trouble? David let out a bitter laugh. You could say that. Want to talk about it? David was quiet for a long moment, then started telling Jake the whole story. About meeting Lisa at the bus stop, their dates, falling in love, and then finding out she was the CEO of the very building they were constructing. Wait, hold up, Jake said when David finished. You're telling me you were dating the boss lady and you didn't know it? She lied to me, Jake. For over a month, she pretended to be someone completely different. I gave her my last $4 for bus fare, and she's probably worth $50 million. Jake was quiet for a minute, thinking. That's messed up, but can I ask you something? When you were with her, before you knew about the money, how did she treat you? Like I was the most important person in the world, David admitted. She listened to everything I said, laughed at my jokes, seemed genuinely interested in my dreams and goals. And did any of that change because you found out she's rich? David frowned. What do you mean? I mean, is she still the same person? Who cared about your dreams? Is she still the woman who spent hours talking to you about building affordable housing? Or did finding out about her money somehow change who she is as a person? David didn't answer, but Jake's words stuck with him for the rest of the day. That evening, David found himself walking past the community center where he volunteered. Without really thinking about it, he went inside and started helping with the after-school program. Working with the kids always helped clear his head. "Mr. David," called out 10-year-old Miguel, the same boy who had been building a birdhouse a few weeks earlier. "Look what I made." He held up a small wooden box with a hinged lid. "That's fantastic, Miguel," David said, examining the boy's work. "Your cuts are getting much cleaner. You've been practicing." "My mom says I can keep my treasures in here," Miguel said proudly. "She also said to ask you something. She wants to know if the nice lady is coming back. She really liked her." David's chest tightened. "What nice lady?" "The one with the pretty smile who helped me with my measuring. She was really good at it and she didn't talk to me like I was stupid like some adults do. Is she your girlfriend?" David knelt down to Miguel's level. "Why did you like her so much?" Miguel shrugged. "She was nice, really nice, and she looked at you the way my mom looks at my dad when she thinks he's not watching. Like you make her happy." On the other side of town, Lisa was sitting in her apartment, staring at a photo on her phone from one of their dates. It was a selfie David had taken of them at the park, both of them laughing at something silly he had said. She looked genuinely happy in the picture, happier than she had looked in years of professional photos and business magazine covers. Her doorbell rang, which was unusual since the doorman usually called up first. When she opened the door, she was shocked to see her business partner and best friend Amanda standing there with a bottle of wine and a concerned expression. "Okay, that's it," Amanda said, pushing past Lisa into the apartment. "You've been acting like a zombie for 2 weeks, you're ignoring important business decisions, and your assistant is worried you're having some kind of breakdown. What's going on?" Lisa broke down and told Amanda everything. About David, about the lies, about falling in love for the first time in her life and then losing it all because of her own deception. "So let me get this straight," Amanda said when Lisa finished. "You met a good man who treated you like gold. You fell in love with him, and now you're miserable because he found out you have money?" "He found out I lied to him," Lisa corrected. "About everything." "Did you lie about your feelings for him?" "No, of course not." "Did you lie about enjoying his company? About caring about his dreams? About respecting what he does for a living?" "No, but—" "Then you didn't lie about everything," Amanda said firmly. "You lied about your bank account, not about your heart. There's a difference." The next day, Lisa made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. She put on one of her simple dresses, the kind she had worn on her dates with David, and took the bus to the construction site. She didn't go as the CEO this time. She went as the woman who had fallen in love with a man who gave his last few dollars to a stranger. She found David during his lunch break, sitting alone on the same stack of lumber where he always ate. Her heart pounded as she approached him. "David?" she said softly. He looked up, and for a moment she saw surprise and something that might have been hope flash across his face before his expression hardened. "What are you doing here, Lisa?" "I came to tell you that you were right," she said, sitting down beside him even though he didn't invite her to. "I did lie to you and I hurt you and I'm sorry. I'm sorrier than I've ever been about anything in my life." David didn't respond, so she continued. "But I need you to know that everything I felt for you was real. Every conversation, every laugh, every moment when you made me feel like the luckiest woman in the world, that was all real. I didn't fall in love with you because you were poor, and I hope you didn't fall in love with me because you thought I was poor too." "Then why did you lie?" David asked quietly. "Because I was scared," Lisa admitted. "I've spent my whole adult life having people want things from me because of my money. Business deals, investments, connections, social status. I couldn't remember the last time someone just wanted to spend time with me because they enjoyed my company. When I met you, for the first time in years, someone saw me as just a person. I was terrified that if you knew about the money, everything would change. David was quiet for a long time, and Lisa's heart sank. She had hoped that honesty might bridge the gap between them, but maybe the damage was too deep. Finally, David reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled $4 bill. "I kept the bus fare," he said with a small smile. "The one you tried to pay me back with that $100 bill. I kept it because it reminded me of the day I met someone special." Lisa felt tears spring to her eyes. "David, I've been thinking about what you said," he continued. "About the money not changing how you felt about me. Well, the money doesn't change how I felt about you either. I fell in love with the woman who laughed at my stories and cared about my dreams and made me want to be a better person. That woman is still sitting right here, isn't she?" "Yes," Lisa whispered. "She is." David stood up and extended his hand to her. "In that case, I think a beautiful woman owes me bus fare. Want to take a ride and start over?" Lisa took his hand, feeling her heart fill with more joy than all her business success had ever brought her. "I'd love to," she said, "but this time I'm buying." As they walked toward the bus stop hand in hand, Lisa realized that the best investment she had ever made wasn't in her company or her career. It was $4 of kindness that had bought her something priceless. Real love with someone who saw her heart instead of her bank account.